I had many experiences that essentially led me to burnout. So originally it started when I looked at the corporate world as something that I needed to achieve through. And so I went looking for recognition in all the wrong places, typically my boss and my surrounding. And I first in, first out culture, and I burnt out.
So in your world, what is burnout? Grand Rising and welcome to New Mind, where our intention is clear and is to share information for transformation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I don't say this enough, guys, but I appreciate you tuning in. I know a lot of our listeners are abroad in the US and in Europe and in Canada, and some of our beautiful listeners that are growing here in Dubai. I just want to say thank you. I know time is precious and it's just much appreciated. And today I really have a special guest, someone that I clicked with the first time we connected and we met. And I will say the saying, if you've been following me, energy doesn't lie, you know. And Elika is someone that really has such a high frequency when you're around her that she lifts up the room. And this is not a compliment, it's truth. So let me introduce you. So Elika is an energy strategist, a wellness consultant, a keynote speaker who advises founders, executives, teams, and hospitality brands on how to sustain high performance through optimized energy. With over a decade of experience spanning consulting, hospitality, and speaking, she is a trusted by C-suite leaders and high performers, founders to translate complex science into practical, high-impact lifestyle strategies. Her work bridges ancient wisdom with modern wellness, integrating human design, functional health, and emerging bioenergetic science to help leaders operate with greater clarity, resilience, and longevity. Elika is also featured in the channel News Asia, Media Corp, and the Straits Times, and is a member of Asia Professional Speaker Association. Elika, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And like I say, you know, I wasn't a compliment; it was truth. You know, I think the first time we met, me and you, there is always this energetic resonance. I believe when you meet people, right?
Yeah.
And either you synchronize or you don't. Either there is something more to it. And honestly speaking, you've been like I've just connected with you. And I think that's why we met, and that's why we've been having some lovely conversations, and we're collaborating soon in something which we'll announce today as well. But before we start this conversation, I really want to I want the audience to get to know you a little bit more, our listeners, our viewers, and I want you just to share your personal story. I want to understand what led you into this world of energy, wellness, human design. A lot of people don't know what human design. We'll get into that as well, and supporting those high performance leaders. Like, what is the story? How did you find yourself in this space?
Yeah, gosh, I feel like I've had so many different lives, which is we'll come to that when we talk about human design, but my story is a wounds to wisdom. I had many experiences that essentially led me to burnout and recovering from that. So originally it started when I looked at the corporate world as something that I needed to achieve through. And so I went looking for recognition in all the wrong places, typically my boss and my surrounding. And I first in, first out culture, and I burnt out. And through that burnout, I went looking for deeper answers. And originally I thought that was to take care of my physical body. I was a natural athlete when I was younger, so I'd always taken care of my physical body. But then I started looking at the food. I went to explore deeper the food. I studied at the largest nutrition school in the world, became a certified health coach, and then ended up starting an executive health coaching practice over 10 years ago. And really to help people see that food is medicine. That took me into a journey of wanting to provide deeper insights in that. And so I opened up Singapore's first organic whole foods restaurant. And then in that concept, I was just doing everything that I thought was mission orientated and going to create impact in people's lives at the expense of myself. So that's when my second burnout came. And in my second burnout, I had got the opportunity to dig deeper and to actually ask myself, how could this be happening again? And obviously now I'm in my own space, my own environment, my own rules, and I cannot blame my previous environment for this second burnout. And so that for me was the deep journey, and it's essentially what I do now with others, but it started the inside out journey. And it involved a lot of exploration all around the world, predominantly spending time with indigenous cultures and understanding what they knew that was different to my Western education. And essentially they spent a lot of time thinking about different elements outside of the physical body. And so now essentially that's what I really help others do, and I help others that want to create a big impact in their world and in their life, and they're doing it typically at the expense of themselves, their health, their well-being, and their relationships.
I love it. I love it. And really very inspiring. And I don't want to, I want to just touch on this word burnout, because a lot of people use that term and everyone has a different meaning to it. So I think just for our listeners and audience, when in your definition, when you say someone is reaching burnout, so some people can resonate with that word.
Yeah.
What is the definition of burnout for you? What would you say? Because you said you experienced it twice. So in your world, what is burnout?
Yeah, it's really important, because it's so funny how many people still ask me that. And I think a lot of the people that ask me it have actually had burnout as well. And, you know, when I started this work, there wasn't a complete formal definition. And since then, the World Health Organization has come up with one. And to be honest, I don't agree with it, because it focuses on work. Now, I perceive burnout to be that when you are on a trajectory in your life and you are taking certain actions and your soul actually has a clear intention of what you're here to come to do, and each of us are unique in that. When you go against that pathway that is already laid out for you, there is a resistance that happens, and that resistance creates a lot of friction, and that friction might show up in small things, maybe headaches, insomnia, fatigue, and then it gets bigger. And some of my clients, they have autoimmune illnesses, and some of them are just high achievers pushing through. But essentially what happens is that friction becomes so big that the physical body is stopped. And if you think about it, if I can't stop you from your misalignment in what you're actually here to do, then I should physically stop your body from being able to do what you're doing. And that to me is the true, really resonance that I have with burnout, that I see time and time again, and obviously within myself.
So you're saying that the physical body becomes working against you, in other words, right?
It no longer provides the energy to source the actions that you're taking. And when we remove energy away from a physical body, and again, think about the human body, how do we determine that a human body is no longer alive? We actually check electrical activity in the body through a machine, and it says that there's no electrical pulses, we're dead. So what happens is a burnout to me, and we can talk about the symptoms of it, but literally you don't have the energy that's required to continue in that action that you're taking.
I like how you use the word, and not a lot of people use this today. In I would say in the open world is the idea of going against your soul purpose. You know, going and I'm just, as you're saying that, I'm reflecting on my life, my previous life. You know, when I shared the story with you that I was going against my soul purpose, I was going against, on the outside, I ticked all the boxes of what success would be, you know, ticking all the boxes, reaching a title, all that stuff. But the realization that I was going against my inner core, what my soul was, and I was suppressing it, that was leading me to a form of burnout. And in my case, yes, there was physical, but there was also emotional pain. You know, I was literally emotionally broken down, and then when the emotion also has an impact on the body, right? So that was my sort of experience. I love that, and I think to be honest with you, Elika, more and more people need to understand the relationship between the higher soul purpose and what they're meant to be doing on earth versus what they've been conditioned to come into this place to do. Like a lot of people are conditioned to be in a career, conditioned to be in a relationship, and they're going against their core. And then there's that awakenings that pulse up and wake up, and then they suppress, and they wake up again and then suppress. But then eventually, like you said, the burnout comes. I really think that is a powerful sort of a realization for many, you know. Now, when you speak about energy as one of the most overlooked resources in modern success, I think, you know, why do you believe so many founders and entrepreneurs protect their time and money, but they neglect their energy?
I think it's a lot to do with the conditioning that we've had. So each and every one of us as an individual today have pretty much gone through a similar education system. And that's changing, and it has been changing with the likes of things like Montessori and Steiner. But we've been conditioned to actually use our brain as our cognitive function as the source of everything, the source of wisdom. And so we will learn how to retain information, hold on to it, and actually regurgitate it for an exam or some other formal recognition of that, and then forget about it. And actually, for thousands of years, we didn't do that. We actually used our primal instincts, our body, and our environment. And that the communication between those two things was what kept us alive. And so what we see now today is that instead of people just going back into what is their instincts, what is their inner wisdom telling them, they're looking outside of them, and they're looking for things outside of them to give them all of the answers. And the problem with that is that you end up having to follow a strategy. So the strategy could be, I want to be a CEO, or I want to be crypto, I want to be whatever the thing is, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor. So there's a strategy for that. Okay, you go to medical school for 7 years, do this, go into the clinic, or go to this university. And that strategy may work. And it's probably worked for many people, and therefore you can see it success. But is it your version of success? And what I see is that one person's version of success may work for you and it may not. So what I always encourage leaders to do is to look at strategies, but understand the most important thing is the energy behind the strategy. Because two people can follow the same strategy and have completely different results because of the energy they do it with.
That's so true. And I think the energy element is somewhat overlooked a lot. You're right. However, what I'm trying to get to is how does an entrepreneur or leader know if they're listening to this show right now, know that, you know what, that's me. The strategy that I've put myself into is actually not working for me energetically.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So what are the symptoms? Yeah. Or what are the signs that Elika, that they could say, oh, actually, that's me. I am conditioned to follow this path, but it's energetically I'm leaking, I'm misaligned. Yeah. What would you say, from your experience, are the common red flags?
Yeah, and it's beautiful because energy does seem to show up in layers.
Yeah,
I refer to this as energy leaks. And we, with our clients, start with an energy audit. And we want to audit every area of their life, personally and professionally, where we see these energy leaks. So when we talk about that, we can first start with the physical body. And the physical body, the typical symptoms that I see are people not feeling like they're in the right size body. And typically that's overweight than underweight, but that's one of the obvious symptoms I see. Then a lot of my clients, they have cognitive function issues. So that can be clarity of mind, it can be memory, and just a mind that doesn't seem to optimize the performance that they want. And then the other thing that I commonly see is insomnia. And that the insomnia that I see is typically between 1 and 3 a.m., which in Chinese medicine, we use the clock, and every single organ has a clock, it has a time that it functions. And between 1 and 3 a.m. is actually the liver. And that liver holds the emotion of anger. And since emotion is energy in motion, that's the energy that's moving through that organ. So the physical body these are the signs. And then other signs that I see is a lack of motivation, constantly getting sick, just constant exhaustion. And that get up and go, that spark that you normally have, especially at the start of the day, it's just gone. And so these are the typical things. And then there's a disillusionment with life and with the things that you have come to believe. You start questioning. And I really, really dislike this for really impactful founders, especially those that have had multiple businesses and shown success, where they start to question who they are and what they actually are here to do. They really start questioning themselves.
I love that. Something I've just to add to the point you're saying, what I've picked up over the years working with entrepreneurs and specifically, leaders and high performers, I've picked up that is the case. You're right. There is a physical misalignment. And once they get their mindset right, once they fall into alignment, they automatically start to have better habits and behaviors to get them back in track. What I've also noticed as a pattern, and maybe you've seen this as well, is a lot of the time they've reached so far, like they've exited or they've done certain successes on the outside, but mainly the driving force for that was an unconscious belief that it's never good enough.
Yes.
Have you experienced that?
I mean, that was my own story. Yeah. So I see that multiple times.
Yeah. So there's always this secondary gain that it's never enough. Yeah. So I have to keep pushing. And it's usually a fuel that is driving them to achieve results, but it's actually creating a havoc on the other side, energetically, misalignment, burnout, etc. So again, I use the metaphor of using an incorrect fuel. Yeah. So the fuel you're using is the fuel that I'm not good enough versus when I switch them to alignment, I'm sure it's the same in you in a different angle, is the understanding that I am worthy, I am good enough, I love myself, there's self-love, there's self-respect, and I got to preserve my energy, which actually gets them further without the burnout. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. We in my work, we call it soul wounds, and there is an exercise that I do where I firstly want to understand where were the wounds? Like where was the point where, and you know, I know sometimes in the spiritual community they can refer to it as a fracture of the soul, but where is the point where this was you and that you went against who you actually were, and then a wound was created? And so what I tend to find in my work is most people have 2 to 3 wounds, and I will get all 3 of them. And the first one we will clear in the work that we do together. And the second and the third, you'll have such awareness of it, you'll see every single time where that wound is showing up. And then you will choose the work, and this is your work, the work of the mind and your new formation of beliefs to constantly rewire your brain.
Correct.
So that when you see it coming up, you course correct.
Correct.
But this is behind it. And so when I left my corporate well-paid job and I'm like, I'm going to save the world, I'm going to help people with their food, they try to kill us with their food, and I open this restaurant and it's succeeding and you're on the front page and you're doing really well and you're having all of this so-called success, and especially because I don't come from a world of entrepreneurs, so that was big for me. And then I'm in my business going, what the hell is happening to me? My health is broken down, my relationship is a mess. How could I be trying to do so much good in the world and it becoming at such an expense of myself? Well, as soon as I looked at my soul wounds, and this was the work that I had to do with the Indigenous, but I could see where that drive, that motivation, all of that hard work to build this business
Was to prove?
Was to prove. It was coming from the same way. And it was from a core belief that I held. And that core belief was implanted in me as a child, which was I had to work hard, not smart. And that's what was modeled to me.
Wow.
And that's all I ever knew.
I've seen that so many times with conditioning, because that's what I do, as you know, with the reconditioning of the mind.
Yeah.
Where the narrative or the subconscious decision, because I say all beliefs are decisions, right? That's how I define it. So there was a decision made, usually coming from our culture or our parents or our society, where you have to work hard to be successful.
Yes.
And can I be honest with you? I used to work very, very hard in my previous life.
Yeah.
And yes, I got results and I got the good paycheck, etc. Now I do even better.
Yeah.
And I don't work as hard, but I'm more in alignment with energy. Like I would spend more hours working, but there's no I can't say it's hard.
No.
I'll be honest with you.
No.
I can't. And people go, you know, you're doing this, you're having sessions, and then you have workshops. I'm like, yeah, but it's not
so
hard
easy.
work.
Yeah.
It's really and that's the biggest realization I've had, which is the disillusion and falselyhood of this narrative of we have to work hard. I think this is the biggest lie on humanity,
really
actually.
is,
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Like, and some people buy into it. No, what are you talking about? I have to work hard.
Yeah.
So you have to work hard. And these motivational speakers go out there, work hard. You got to work hard to be successful. No, you can work smart.
Yeah.
And you can be so efficient.
Absolutely.
And you can still produce something beautiful. And I'm the proof, and you are too, that it's not the case.
Absolutely.
Because I believe working hard in that narrative, maybe you would agree with me, that's what creates burnout.
Absolutely. And then it's so hard, and I wish this for everybody, because I remember the me that worked 12 hours days and just thought by adding actually more time, I could achieve more and be even more successful.
Yeah.
And then obviously brought that into my own business. And I you know, when the restaurant was acquired and I had all this free time, I for the second time in my life, the first was when I decided to go to a competitor and they put me on garden leave, and I was like, hang on a minute. I had never had half a day off. I had half a day off in 11 years of working sick. And I had half a day because I went into work and they were like, no, you got to go home.
Wow.
And so I was in this situation when also the restaurant was acquired where I was like,
and garden leave.
what the hell? Yeah, what the hell is
What do
this?
I do with myself?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I was so indoctrinated by hard work. But luckily for me, the second time round, when the restaurant was acquired, I'd already been on that journey.
Good.
So I knew I could recreate from the new belief.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Look, I want to dive into the topic of human design. You know, and I know. In our last conversation, you were like, "When were you born?" What time? I'm like, "Oh, okay." but like I said to you, I don't have. You're the specialist here. You know, I have a little bit of knowledge about it. I dived into it when I was in Bali a little bit, because I did it for myself, really, not for my clients. But you do this for your clients, and you really. So what I'd love you to share, because a lot of people probably first time hearing about this, how does human design help founders, leaders understand how they're naturally designed to make decisions, lead, communicate, create opportunities? But how does human design in the elements? So maybe a small little definition to what it is and how you use it today for the work you do.
Yeah.
So if you can just
I know. I could talk all day about human design. I love it so much.
Yeah.
But to answer, Human design is the roadmap to your authentic self. You know, when we were born, nobody gives you the guidebook. Sam, this is who you are. This is how you operate. This is how you'll get success. Nobody gives you that. I can tell you that human design is the closest that I found to that. And, you know, I come from originally a career in HR where we had loved all the archetypes, disc profiling, Myers-Briggs. Let's quiz you. Let's see which box to put you in. And it's none of that. It is an energetic expression, and it takes ancient wisdom and modern science, and it creates a blueprint of how you are designed to give and receive energy. So in simple terms, it explains who you are, what you're here to do, and how you're here to do it. Now, I know if everybody has clarity on that, they're going to be so much more efficient in how they use their energy. And that's exactly what I do. I say to you, and you know, I started, you know, when I started my own business, it was nutrition first before moving on to all the other elements of what makes a person whole. And in nutrition, we learned very quickly, we cannot teach one size fits all. Now, some people are still teaching calories and macros and whatever, but, you know, you learn very quickly. You're not going to go far with many people if you do that. And yet we still do that when we work with leaders, when we work with individuals. We still say, this is the way. This is what your brand palette should look like. These are your branding guidelines. This is, as a business coach, these are the ways that you grow a business. This is how you scale. This is how many hours you should work. This is what your social media should look like. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
It's true for one person, and it may have got a lot of success, but it isn't necessarily your version of success. So the reason I use it is that whether I'm building your business, your relationships, or your health, I want to make sure that I'm building your version of it. Not my version, but your version. Not your parents, not your teachers, not your partners, but yours. And that's the tool that I have where I can look at your blueprint and we can sit and we can go, oh, that's why you feel that way. That's why you can't find that. This is why these people are not coming to you. That's what it gives us.
So it gives you a little bit of more clarity from human design in terms of their strengths, their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's a good way for people to understand more about it? There's an astrological aspect to it. The astrology is there, correct?
Let me explain what makes it up.
Yeah.
So when you get your human design, which we take from some information you give us, and the information you give us is your birth time, date of birth, and birth location. Now, with the algorithms and that, and especially now with AI, we just bring up your chart very easily. Anyone can access their chart on the internet. The truth of my work and what I've spent 9 years studying is how do I take your chart and imprint that into actually what you're going to do to live by your design. And remember, living by your design is going back to who you already are. So we're not having to change you. We're having to strip all the layers that you've put on yourself, the conditioning.
Yeah.
So human design uses astrology, it uses numerology, and they're the pseudoscience, which I like to refer to those as the science that weren't funded. But it also uses the ancient wisdom. So we have in there the Kabbalah, we have in there the I Ching, and we also have in there the Ayurvedic Hindu chakra system.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Then we have the modern science, and specifically we have the science of the physics, the strand of physics, which is quantum physics.
Yes, I'm
which
familiar
is the science of energy.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have biology. Now, if you just imagine, and I know with our concierge that we have practitioners and resources for anything a client could need. So we've had, for example, an astrologer who's, I would say, is like a mathematical genius, who's worked with us for 8 years. And when I just think about what he's studied, what he's had to learn to get to that level, I mean, you could spend a whole lifetime doing that. And I lived in Asia for 14 years, and those deep traditional practitioners of the I Ching, they have studied and lived this their whole life. Imagine that we take all of those ancient wisdoms and that modern science, we put it all together. That's too overwhelming for anyone. So that creates a visual body graph, because we know that human beings were learning through storytelling and through visual interpretation. Now, my job is to interpret that visual body graph into what you actually do, say everything. So 3 key areas I would say are particular strong areas that I like to work with are their emotions and how they feel the energy of other people through their emotional body. The other thing is their communication. What are they here to speak about? Because the point of manifestation, and there's a lot of work around manifestation now, but honestly, the science of manifestation, there is a science to it. And you go from something that it doesn't even exist, which is an idea, which is an electronic photon in the mind. And that electronic photon attaches to an emotion. And that emotion creates a chemical reaction in the body. And that chemical reaction takes actions. And then if you're good now at manifestation, you can take that and you can start putting words to it. And the moment you put words to it, you can now start creating physical form. And so so it's very important for me to know the communication element of this person so that they can actually manifest their reality. And then the third element is about their ability to build. Not everybody has inbuilt in them the biggest, what we call the energy center, which is the center of the womb, the creation energy. Not everybody has that innately built in them in an overflow. So we have to look at how they're going to build. And these three areas, their emotional body, like how they feel about certain things, their what they're here to speak about and therefore manifest, and how they build it. These three things. I mean, even if I just work on those three things, I will change your life.
Yeah.
And I have 12 weeks typically with a leader, and so we go a lot deeper than that.
Beautiful. I love that. I love the idea that you're using the blueprint. It's like having a DNA test today, really, but you're just having something on an energetic blueprint of what is more at flow with them.
Yes.
A lot of times people don't know that, and they're working against it,
Yes.
which where there's more resistance,
Yeah.
there's more difficulty in manifestation.
Yeah.
There's no even self-belief, because they lost faith in themselves purely because they're misaligned with their blueprints.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
I find that fascinating, and I think honestly, in the world of energetics, I'm a big fan of quantum physics, and I use this in my own work. But I find that a lot of people really overlook this, and they go, no, doesn't mean anything to me. But it's true. It all starts with the thought, with the emotion, with the communication, with the clarity that creates the manifestation into physical reality, which is taking action.
Yeah.
I want to just add a layer to what you're saying, and I want to ask you something about this, because again, you have wealth of experience both in your personal journey and working with others. And I want to tap in just briefly on because when I speak to entrepreneurs, when I speak with leaders, when I work with them, a big common goal that I'm sure you would agree with me is the ability to unlock abundance.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how do you define that in your world, where you have someone that they are chasing abundance through strategy alone, more than work, more output, more action? But what role does the body, the nervous system, and the internal alignment play in creating greater success and abundance to unlock it in your perspective? What would you say?
Well, human design obviously speaks a lot to abundance, because human design says that if you do your version of you will have the most success. And, we are not designed to be poor, but we are designed to be in survival.
Okay.
And so the human condition is one of survival. We were not designed for abundance as we are. Now, we have more abundance, as you know, today than we've ever had.
Yeah.
And we're also the sickest we ever are. So there is some coding that each and every one of us has. So in human design, there are multiple pathways that show abundance. And the key one is, how do you get energy to flow freely through your body without blocking it? So the first thing is we have to do with the deconditioning. So the deconditioning in a lot in your world is about the beliefs.
Yeah.
So what are the thoughts that have created the beliefs that now shape your actions, and how do we remove them? So in human design, we say once we decondition you, you can go back to your rawest self, and that is your most authentic self, and that's where you get success. So for example, that looks like let me just think of in my world, that was the person that would always speak her truth and would always be told, you can't say that. And so learn to really mute and to hold back in what I wanted to say, and then that suppression, obviously that energy goes internally.
That affects abundance.
That affects abundance, because if you can't speak your truth, so for example, in my human design, I'm here to deeply penetrate people by telling them like truthful messages, and that's not easy sometimes to hear. But if you look at all my testimonials, if it's one thing that they all say that is the reason they choose me, I say it how it is. So if you imagine now, I am the girl that was told always, you can't say that, you shouldn't say, okay, don't say anything. If you come, don't say anything, Elika, like whatever you do, don't say anything. And now if I internalize that, and that is my code to success, which is my code to abundance, how can I achieve it? Well, now I'm going to try and follow somebody else's path. Maybe I get a good business coach and they're brilliant at what they do. But whatever they do, I follow. But what I always do is in the moments that they're not with me, I don't say what I truly wanted to say. And even to them, I don't say to them that I disagree with that thing, even though my inner authority tells me, because I'm wired to not tell my truth.
I love it. I love it. So in other words, would you agree to the statement that the true path to abundance is the ability to be the most authentic self that you are?
Absolutely.
right? This is
Absolutely.
this is what I've learned in
Yeah.
my life. Is like the more I am authentic, the more I'm real, and I have the same feedback, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm very direct, but
Yeah.
I'm not direct rude.
Yeah.
I'm just direct as a person,
Yeah.
because I feel that if I'm not expressing myself to the fullest with love,
Yeah.
then I am shutting down this magnetic field of attraction and expansion.
Yeah, I totally feel you.
You got what
I
I'm saying?
do.
So our listeners and viewers that are looking to unlock more abundance,
Yeah.
for me, I tie it up, and maybe you would agree with this, is number one, like you rightfully said, is
Yeah.
the ability to show up authentically in all aspects of the self.
Yes.
And also of course, my world, which is you call it deconditioning, I call it reconditioning,
Yeah,
same thing,
love it.
but reconditioning the deep rooted belief system.
Yeah.
And more particular, what I found that really unlocked people's abundance, and I call abundance not only money. Abundance comes in many forms, and I actually coach this, but is the ability to make sure that you believe fully, wholeheartedly, emotionally, energetically, that you are worthy.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So worthiness is a big one, right?
Worthiness is a big one. So in human design chart, we have the center, the heart center.
Yes.
And the heart center represents identity. It is the one that follows the I am. So anything that you say, and I always say this, with my clients, I just listen very closely and I tell them to listen to whatever you are saying after the words I am, because that's your coding, recoding your heart center and your identity. So whenever somebody has this open, so in human design, you see these visual shapes that come from the chakra system. And when they're white, that means they're open centers. That means energy flows freely in from outside of them. And they use the energy outside of them to power them. But when it's colored in, this is closed centers. And this means that they're self-generating that energy. So when you have an open center on the heart center, which I do, it means that you become a chameleon to others in your environment. You become what everybody wants you to be, because you breathe in the energy, you hold in that, you take in the energy of others, and therefore that you will become the father or the wife that they want you to be, the mother, the employee, the employer. You'll become what your environment wants you to be. And so the work there is...
But you're not losing authenticity in that motion?
No, because authenticity comes from you knowing what do you feel like in your most natural state. So if that thing outside of you is so let me give you an example. So when I went to university, I realized that I was in this huge community, huge Jewish community, and I naturally absorb the environment that I'm in. So now I'm in the UAE, I'm learning everything about what it takes to be a Muslim, and so I started doing various practices and start incorporating lots of things. Now, some of those things felt good to me, but the reason why I just adopt it is because I was born Roman Catholic, but I'm not so indoctrinated in the religion as I am God. And so when they were sharing certain things with me, though, I was like, oh my God. And so I just start absorbing their belief systems, their religion, just as if it's mine. And that's really good. But then when you move me back into my own home environment, all of a sudden I go, and I start questioning that particular thing. So then you have to figure out, well, what was theirs and what was my truth? And so the deconditioning process is very important, because then you have to clear out this identity and figure out, what is my identity, and is their identity the same as my beliefs? And there is a process in human design that we use to do that, and that's called inner authority. And inner authority is the way that you have uniquely been designed to make decisions. So when you override and it's a feeling inside of you, when you override that, that's when you start now shape-shifting or becoming something outside of you, or adopting to somebody else's identity.
I hear you. So shape-shifting doesn't necessarily mean that you are fully buying into the narrative of the environment, but more the ability to adapt and adopt to what's happening.
That's it. So remember that human design is not based on modern day living. It's based on how human designs were created and lived for thousands of years. So we know we're social creatures. We moved as tribes for survival. Everybody in that tribe needed a role. And so when you look at somebody's body graph and you see the open centers, you actually see where they can now absorb certain things in from their environment to be able to utilize.
Okay.
So there's a shadow side of that. The shadow side is I become what you want me to be, and I just self-go myself, right? I forget about who I am. But then the plus of that is, you can put me in any scenario, any environment, any culture, anything, and I can adapt. Which, imagine if there was somebody in the tribe that needed to go out and be the greeter for another tribe.
Yeah. I'm the same as that, because when you're saying that, I'm reflecting about my childhood and coming from two different cultures and backgrounds. I've learned to adapt and adopt so quickly. And in fact, some of my friends used to call me the chameleon because I could get along with anyone.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that is a strength.
Yeah.
But I am just referring to what you're saying. It's true, because it doesn't mean that I'm obedient to everything there.
No.
It's more that I am making life easier for everyone involved to flow and to adapt.
Yeah.
And also to take what aligns with me, what
Yes.
resonates
Yeah.
with me. That's what you said when you went back.
Exactly.
You're like, okay, I accepted that in the moment because I wasn't resistant or narrow focused or narrow minded or rigid.
That's it.
But when I came back into my essence of my environment, I realized I'm going to keep that there. I'm going to take that. I'm going to leave that. That's resonating. That's a lie. So it also gives you that room to, because that's why I'm saying, for me, it's really important, even in the chameleons that we are, is to stay truth to our authentic self. That's right?
Yeah.
And I think that is something that comes naturally. Actually, it's not something you're trying to force, and you're not faking it. Actually, you're not.
No.
Even when you're in there, you're just being.
Exactly. So that's what we talk. So that's why it comes back to that self-worth bit.
Yeah.
But you can apply that with everything.
Yeah.
So the person that has the open throat, they now are here as a leader to speak on behalf of others.
Yeah.
What's the message that everyone's trying to say that everybody needs to hear?
Yeah.
But if they have the closed throat, actually they already have the message, and they need to share that.
I love that. Look, we're going to wrap up here. I've got two things I want to cover with you. So firstly, for all the entrepreneurs that are listening or watching this, and I have a lot of people that are transitioning, or some of the guys that, it's a massive community. We've got traders, non-traders, but everyone does have that entrepreneurial spirit, especially the guys that have been following New Mind. I wanted to ask you, for entrepreneurs who feel tired, who feel unclear or stuck, despite doing all the right things, let's say, in between brackets, what are some practical steps that they can take to restore vitality and reconnect with their inner clarity? Just something practical that maybe you can share with them, Elika?
Yeah, so in our world, this is an energy audit. So we're looking for energy leaks. We're looking for all the times where you feel dysregulation. This is to say you feel uncomfortable. And this is where you are going against your natural rhythm, which is guided by your inner authority. So the wisdom that you have, your primal instincts inside of you that guide you every day. So what you want to do is you want to take a day and you want to observe every single time you override an area where you feel discomfort. Someone says something, you didn't really like what they say, but you do it anyway. You take an action. You eat something, you shouldn't, but you eat anyway, and then you feel uncomfortable. You want to do, and you want to make note. You want to start jotting these down. These are your energy leaks. These are every single time you override your inner authority. And these energy leaks form patterns. They form patterns in where they're showing up. So maybe your energy leaks are mostly in relationships. Mainly your energy leaks are in purpose in your work and the work that you do. Maybe it's in your health. But then that gives you a starting place, because you can start figuring out which of these areas do I need to focus on. I always say that we have all these burners running. Like, let's say we have 4 burners in our life and we want to keep them all running. But we have to put intention on one of them each time. And so my framework is called the energy reset, and we have 4 pillars. So when you look at your energy leaks, you can start weaving out which is the pillar that I seem to be leaking the most. And then you can be intentional about taking action in one pillar at a time.
I love it. That's a great advice, great tip. Thank you so much, Elika. Now, if someone is listening right now and wants to create more abundance, more impact, freedom, but their body is exhausted and their mind is overwhelmed, what would you tell them is the first shift they must take and must make internally? Would it be the same thing or something else?
Yeah, I mean, we as humans are also cyclical beings. We're designed to move in our environment, which is not linear, right? So we also go through seasons. And so there is a season of restoration, where you need to bring back energy into your body and restore. We're not machines, but even machines have a moment to pause and stop and recalibrate. So you need to know what season you're in. Sometimes people are building and they're in a season of restoration. Sometimes people are like pretending that they're in overflow and they should be building.
How do you know though what season, when you're in the right season for your journey?
You can tell if you have the energy to do it.
Okay.
So it's a bit like I say, I really would love you to help me with this project, and inside you're like, oh my God, I've got a million things to do, and you literally will say to me, I can't really look at that until next month. It's because you have not got the capacity to do it. That's energetic capacity.
Okay, I hear you.
So you have to know which season you're in. If you're in a season where you feel tired and exhausted majority of the time, you need to move into restoration. The quicker you move into that season, the more the energy flows back into you, and then you can go back into building. Once we're in building, now, like my season right now is maintenance. So in maintenance, my job, and I love the book The Big Leap for this, but my job is to hold all of the beautiful things that I have in my life, my love, my romance, my business, my mission, and my health, to hold all of those and sustain it and be able to build an even bigger vessel for more of what I've already got.
Gotcha.
Now, if I just stay here and maintain, I'm already good. I'm
Okay.
already having peace and joy, but I've got, so knowing your season.
That's beautiful, beautiful. Ilika, I want to say thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing your insights, your wisdom, and really for being here, being the light that you are, and someone that I have a lot of respect for, you know, approaching, helping leaders in this space from a different realm.
Yeah.
I think it's more and more needed. So again, Ilika, thank you for being on the show.
you.
Thank you for sharing your energy, and really,
Yeah,
I
I've loved
appreciate
it.
it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Have a great one. Much love and positive energy.